good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our CAS-CIAC Women in Leadership Conference 2022. I'm Bill Silva, the Associate Executive Director at the Connecticut Association of Schools, and along with my CAS-CIAC colleagues, Sharice Miller-Odukwe, Henry Rondon, Erin Guarino, and Kathy Prow, we're pleased to have so many of you signing on this morning for what I know will be an informative and inspirational presentation with our 10 impressive and accomplished leaders. Please let us know in the chat how many students are viewing today. If you can just put that in there and we can get a sense of how many student groups are out there and being able to be part of this wonderful event. Before we begin, I want to thank our corporate partners, the Connecticut Army National Guard, the Connecticut Alliance to End Sexual Violence, Connecticut Lighting Centers, Horace Mann, Jostens, MCM Fundraising, and SpringPath for their ongoing support of CAS-CIAC and for all of our programs. We're recording today's conference and we'll make that recording available in the next few days. I now want to introduce our student moderator for today. We're so grateful to have Sydney Hart, a senior at Griswold High School, to be our moderator for our two panels of distinguished women leaders this morning. So welcome, Sydney. Thank you for moderating today's Women in Leadership Conference. And I'll now turn the presentation over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you for that very, very kind introduction, Mr. Silva. I am very excited to be doing this today and to be given this opportunity. So let's just jump right on into it with our esteemed panel. Good morning, everyone. There are a couple of different questions I'm going to go through, and I will go through one by one, asking each of you questions. So to begin, the first question I want to start off with is, tell us a little bit about yourself. Just, kind of dive deep into what, you do for a profession. When I introduce you, I'll state your name and your profession, but I want to just give a nice background on yourself. So to begin, we're going to start off with law enforcement. So Sergeant John Sukmoon, CT State Police.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Sergeant John Sukmoon. So a little bit of background, I started with Connecticut State Police back in January of 2007. I've been on a little bit over close to 15 and a half years. During my time with Connecticut State Police, I've worked on patrol at Troop A in Southbury. I've worked at Backgrounds Investigative Unit, and I worked at Selections and Recruitment for the State Police. And now I'm at my current assignment at Field Operations. So that's a little bit about my background on what I do here. And just personal background, I grew up in New York. I grew up in the Bronx. I'm from a Korean background. My parents came here as immigrants. I was 2 years old when I came to New York. And I grew up in the Bronx, predominantly a neighborhood where it's a low income kind of deal. I went to public school all my life. At the age of 17, we moved up to Westchester, and then I moved into Connecticut once I applied for this job and I got hired by the state police. So I spent majority of my time in New York. So it's just a little bit of a culture shock when I moved up to Connecticut. It's just very different. For me, New York was just like a melting pot of everyone and everything. The food's great down there. I had a lot of friends growing up in the city that come from very different cultural backgrounds. So I was exposed to very different types of people, different cultures. And when I moved up to Connecticut, I realized like there's a lot of very limited things, especially like different cultural foods. People were very interested in my background, especially because obviously when I speak, they know I'm not from Connecticut, and everyone used to make fun of me when I first got on the jobs, talking about how I still have a New York accent. And 15 years later, it's still about the same. But I love doing my job. I was on patrol about 6 years, And like I said, it was just very different from what I was used to in New York with NYPD. A lot of them were on foot patrol and you saw them everywhere. Up here, it's just, you don't see many troopers just because we're one to a car. We drive around by ourselves on patrol. No matter if you're male or female, people think, oh, they give you a partner if you work in certain areas, but nope, you drive around by yourself. Going to the State Police Academy was a huge experience for me. Very different from what I was used to. I worked out of college, I worked in retail and banking. So it's just a different atmosphere. I spent 6 months at the State Police Academy, very intense training. And then the other part was getting the hang of driving around throughout Connecticut. It was just New York, I didn't drive a lot. Public transportation just was the easiest mode of transportation down there. So trying to know the area and kind of get to know the state up here was just a huge, very big, huge learning curve for me, obviously. And I love what I do. I'm able to do different assignments while I've been in Connecticut State Police. It wasn't just patrol. My previous assignment was selections and recruitment, which I supervised the hiring process for the state police. And doing that, I've been to many different schools. We've done different community outreach programs, try to get people familiar with what state police troopers do on a daily basis, just to get people interested in this line of work. And currently, it's just been difficult trying to get people into law enforcement across the country. So we always look to educate the younger generation about what police work is. And it's not what you see on TV on a daily basis. I know a lot of people get the misrepresentation of what cops really do. And it entails a lot of paperwork. I know even at school, I know some kids are just like, we're not really big into paperwork and we don't like writing or reading too much. However, even if you're a police officer, you're not just going to be running around catching bad guys. There's reports and paperwork all day, every day. So that's pretty much it. And that's all I got for you today.
Thank you so much. I think that is lots of life lessons there, lots of great advice, and thank you for sharing. We're going to keep continuing on to Dr. Elena Bertozzi, Professor and Director of Games Design and Development at Quinnipiac University. Same question goes for you. Can you share a little bit about your life, some of your background, and just explain how you've gotten to where you are today?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here and to meet all of these great women. So I too am an immigrant and have had a pretty unusual life, actually. So I was born in Italy and came to the US when I was about 4 years old. Did all of my schooling in the US and went to college and studied English. I actually have my bachelor's is in English and feminist philosophy. And then I ended up going back to Italy for a while and coming back to the US. And when I was in college, there was literally no such thing as job prep. I had no idea what I was going to do for a living. I knew I didn't like most of the things that seemed to be available. Like I didn't want to be a doctor or a lawyer or any of those things. I did a lot of different jobs. So I cooked professionally for a living. I worked as an English translator and I taught English. But then I ended up back in the United States. I was actually a single mother of 2 small children. And I realized that with my bachelor's degree in English and feminist philosophy, I could not get a job above minimum wage. And that was really a shock to me. So I ended up going back to school initially in library science, where I first started learning how to use computers. And then in library science, I met a mentor, a man who wanted to start a program in game design, which for me was like, game design. I've always loved games and play, and I'm a very competitive person. And it was just the perfect fit for me. So I started making games. I make a lot of games that are related to English and feminist philosophy. So my work is really focused on making games around things people are ashamed of. So for example, sex education. How do we teach people about birth control? How do we help people negotiate difficult conversations? And then I also do other games related to health and education, and play is a really good way to get people to talk about and interact with things that are otherwise difficult for them to deal with. After I did that for a little while, I became a director of a game program in Indiana. And then I went on from there to realize that in order to actually proceed in my field, I needed a PhD. So then I got a PhD actually, and I was, I think, 43 when I finally finished my PhD. So that was this kind of unusual path to that as well. And then I started leading game programs. So I started a game program at the University of Wisconsin. So game design is a new field in academia. Many people think it's bad, like video games are bad and children shouldn't play them. But luckily that's starting to change now as people really understand that games are incredibly important media. They, the game industry is bigger than film, television combined. It's a huge industry, a very powerful industry. Mostly men for a really long time. We're starting to get a lot more women in it. And I have strong feelings about why we should have a lot more women in it. And then I've gone from there to starting and leading several other game programs. So now I run the program in game design and development at Quinnipiac University, where we make games for entertainment and a lot of games for health and games for what we call games for good or games for social change. I think I have one of the best jobs in the world. I literally get to play all the time, and I call it research. And I have incredibly motivated and creative students who make really cool work. I work with a lot of doctors and scientists and people around the world on projects using play to really change the world in a better way. So I feel really lucky to have the job that I do. And it's all about learning how to use science and technology. And so I'm going to really encourage everybody to focus on that in school. So thanks for having me.
Thank you, Dr. Bertozzi. That was very, very interesting and very inspiring. I think we can all say how much we appreciate your leadership, especially in a very male-dominated field. So thank you for sharing. I'm going to continue on to Ayana Torres, who runs Urban Beauty Skin and Brow. So once again, the same question goes for you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, some of your background, and how you've gotten to where you are today.
Good morning, everyone, and I thank you all for letting me be here today. My name is Ayana. I am 24 years old. I am from Hartford, Connecticut, have lived here my entire life. I am the owner of Urban Beauty Skin and Brow Bar. This is a day spa that I've created to simply make people feel good about themselves, to bring people to a comfortable environment where I can help educate them upon skincare, body care, and just enlighten people about, what makes you feel good. A lot of the times we get caught up in work and our everyday lives and, what we have to do, we forget to, tend to ourselves and, what makes us feel good. I have grew up, I am the youngest of 3 girls. So I have 2 older sisters and I'm the youngest. And sometimes being the youngest, they say the youngest is spoiled and we always get what we want and everything. But I feel like from a very young age, I had to gain responsibility of, making sure things was good and taking care. So I am someone who loves to spoil and to pamper and to do things that feel good. So I've just literally all my life, I've found creative outlets into making myself feel good, whether it's being something in the arts and dancing, writing, singing, drama, acting, anything like that. I like to find creative outlets into expressing yourselves, into making yourselves feel good. So that's just something that I've always, been driven to do and been driven to, find and share light. From a young age, I want to say I grew up in Hartford. Like I said, I started dancing when I was about 6 years old. So from 6 years old to about now, I've literally been in outlets where I'm just being creative and I'm just being myself. And sometimes for people that's like, what are you doing? And okay, you can't do like the normal things of other people, but I just like to be creative and I like to express myself in creative ways. So being in an atmosphere and creating my own business, creating my own space where I can allow people to come in and either vent to me or, you know, talk to me and help them feel good, help them learn about themselves is something that I actually take pride in.
That is very wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Ms. Torres. That was very, very nice, and just great how you like to pamper others and share that same love that you have. So thank you. Continuing, we're going to move on to Superintendent Madeline Negron, who is Chief of Academics, Teaching, Learning, and Student Supports at Hartford Public Schools. So Ms. Negron, would you mind please explaining to us, you know, your background, what led you to where you are today, and just giving us an overview on that as well.
Good morning. Thank you, Sydney. And it's a pleasure to be here with you today among this amazing panel of accomplished and talented women in our state. I am Dr. Madeline Negron, Chief of Academics in the Hartford Public Schools. I am also the co-founder of CALAS, the Connecticut Association of Latino Administrators and Superintendents. But Sydney, that is just my title. That does not define who I am. And I do want to take an opportunity to share a little bit about me and my story. And for that, I am hoping to share my screen here for a minute. Let me see if I can figure this out. I'm hoping that you can see my screen. Can you guys see my screen?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, so I wanted to put this picture up to tell you a little bit about my story. So I am the proud daughter of Rosa and Pepe. This is, you see my mom here and my dad. And this is a couple who left the island of Puerto Rico to come to Connecticut in search of better opportunities for their 4 children. So you can see I'm here the only girl among these 3 boys. And there's my great grandpa who came with us to this journey to Connecticut. I am a first-generation college student of parents who did not even make it to high school. Both of my parents only made it to middle school grades. I am also the former middle school student who was pigeonholed by the low expectations of the educators, simply because I didn't speak the English language. And unfortunately, some define the limited English acquisition as an absence of intelligence. So that is the world that I encountered when I arrived here at the age of 10. I am the former high school student told that she wouldn't amount to anything. So Ayana, I love how you were saying how you've been embracing your creativity and you've done that all your life. So kudos to you. Imagine being a young kid in high school and people pretty much telling you, hey, your dreams are not gonna come true. You're not going anywhere. So that was my experience. But I am the student who battled all of those low expectations. And I used it. I used it to serve as a driving force to break down all barriers. And eventually, I think I ended up proving everybody wrong. So this is what I have done. I attended UConn immediately after I graduated from high school. When I could no longer afford UConn, because I was paying my own way through part-time work and student loans, I did transfer and went over to Central Connecticut State University. That is where I obtained my bachelor's in education. I was fortunate to begin my career in education, teaching in the same middle school that I first attended. That same place that was pigeonholing me, that is where I went to have my first experience as a teacher. I later taught at the elementary level in New Britain, and then at the high school level in New Haven, before returning to my former middle school as their middle school assistant principal. And 3.5 years later, I became the principal of that same middle school. So I became the first Latina principal in that district. And to me, that meant so much because it was all about going back to that place, right, that was trying to hold me down, and that I was so determined to show otherwise. From there, I moved on to work with high school students as the proud principal of Hill Regional Career Magnet High School in New Haven. I then moved to the central office as a director of instruction and a director of early childhood. In those roles, I was responsible for supporting, coaching, and evaluating a portfolio of schools. I am now serving the students and families of Hartford Public Schools as the Chief of Academics. And in this role, I am responsible for planning, coordinating, and supervising the pre-K-12 instructional program, which services a diverse population of over 17,500 students in 39 schools. And I have also worked with college graduate students, serving as an adjunct professor, preparing school leaders in the Educational Leadership Department at Southern Connecticut State University. So I share all of this to let you know that that is what drives me, right? I am in this position because I want to create opportunity and access through everything that we do in public education, so that every student, every child can eventually realize the hopes and their dreams. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Negron, for that wonderful and beautiful, inspiring story. We all appreciate your perseverance, and it's just amazing to see how someone so put down and so just told they'll never get to where they are has just blossomed and taken that and grown from it. So thank you very much for never giving up. Finally, for this first question, we have student Yasmin Gala from Woodland Regional High School. And I'm very curious, Yasmin, about your answer to this question, just kind of explaining a little bit about yourself because it's from a student perspective. So thank you very much for being with us, and let's hear.
Thank you, Sydney, and good morning, everyone. I'm really happy to be here today. My name is Yasmin Galel, and I'm currently a sophomore at Woodland Regional High School in Beacon Falls. And I would say a lot of my work is related to advocacy for students and just being a voice for people. So, for example, I'm on the Student Equity Advisory Board for CAS, and there I'm talking about making schools really inclusive, especially from a religious standpoint. And I think what really makes that special for me is that I'm able to use my experiences and reflect on those to hopefully help other people by just talking about what I've struggled with and what I want to see changed. And hopefully that can help other people too. And I think that's what really motivates me, knowing that what I'm doing is going to have like a ripple effect and hopefully help other people as well. I would say another part where I'm really involved in leadership is through student government. I've been involved in student council since sixth grade, and I think it's always been interesting to be a leader in my community, and I've decided to grow in that because now I serve on the local and state level. As for a more personal background, I'm born and raised in Connecticut, but I'm actually originally Egyptian. Both of my parents were born in Egypt, but they came here to build better opportunities for their family. Another one of my interests would have to be STEM. So I'm actually really passionate about robotics, and I just got back from Texas where I attended the World Championship. And robotics definitely taught me a lot about collaboration. And I think that element of leadership has been really important. And it's taught me things I can apply back in student government, in math team, and things like that. And robotics has taught me a lot because it really is such a male dominated field. But I think that's what's driven me more. So yeah, I really learned a lot from that. And I'm glad to see more girls are doing it. And I'm really excited to hear what everyone else has to say through the rest of the panel today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yasmin. That was wonderful and very, very different, obviously, compared to the rest of the women on this, since it's from a student perspective. So thank you for enlightening us and giving that perspective. The next question I would like to move on to is a little bit about your personal strengths. your inner self. So I would like to know what you think your own personal strengths are and what those specific strengths have helped, how they have helped you become the person you are and have helped shape where you are today. So we're gonna start again with Sergeant John Sakmu. Please take
Personal strengths. So I would say adapting and probably the willingness to learn things that I don't know and open to criticism of areas that I'm weak in. So I think those are very important. I know some people take it very personal when you get criticized. If I can better myself in any way, I'm open to listening to, areas of criticism or just anything that, if someone can give me advice about doing things a better way, I'm open to that. And I know I'm very seasoned on this job at this point. So some things I'm very set in my ways, and I do have to overcome that and sometimes have to be able to do things different ways if it makes more sense. And I don't know, I guess those are my strengths. I wouldn't, I think I'm harder on myself than anyone else. And I think we all are usually. Other than that, and same thing about just open to learning new things. I don't know everything, and still I learn something new every day at work. If I don't know something, I'm willing to go and find the answers for it. And, I don't think I'm above any work that I do. So any task at hand, I make sure that I take care of. That's it.
Thank you very much for sharing. Continuing, we're going to move on to Dr. Elena Bertozzi, and the same question goes for you. What are some of your inner strengths and those characteristics that push you to be the person you are today?
Thank you. I agree with Jung Suk that I think it's incredibly important to be able to keep learning. So that's definitely a trait that I've had to have, because in my field, the technology changes constantly, and you really have to be willing to learn and change. Most importantly, I think for me and in my field, and just going to, the story of the robotics team where you're one of the only women there, I'm almost always the only woman in the room. And very often it's hard you often have to prove yourself over and over again to the other people that you actually are capable and competent and you belong there. And so I think persistence is probably the thing that's most important for me. So in a lot of the areas where I work, you get rejected all the time. For example, if you apply for grants or you are trying to publish a paper or you're submitting your game to a game competition, probably, you're rejected maybe 50 times before you actually are able to go forward. And so I think it's incredibly important to not let yourself despair about that and not let yourself get torn down by criticism or by failure. But using that, as I think Dr. Madeline said, use that to help push you forward and to allow yourself to say, okay, that bad thing happens, but I'm still here and I'm still strong and I'm going to keep trying. And even if I'm surrounded by a whole bunch of people who are trying to tear me down or not recognize my worth, I'm just going to keep going. And that's really hard to do, but it's an incredibly useful trait. And that's one reason why I think playing video games where you die a lot is actually really good training for that. Because you just learn that every time you go down, you always have a chance to come back. Just get back up and try again, and surround yourself with people who will help you do that is really important. So a strong network of friends. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bertozzi. I adore your persistence and your optimism. Thank you for sharing. Next up is Ayana Torres. So what are some of your inner strengths that have made you become the person you are today?
Yes, I am also going to piggyback because I agree with both of the women and what they stated before me. I feel like one of my strengths is I am very optimistic. I can adapt into any environment, any circumstance at any point in time, no matter what's thrown, no matter what's given, and no matter what's put in front of me. I am someone who am very determined to get by it, to get through it, and to always set goals and to achieve them. I am someone who is very ambitious. I feel like there's nothing that I cannot accomplish. I was put on this world to accomplish anything that is set in front of me. So those are quite a few strengths that I believe that I obtain. I am just someone. I am definitely a go getter. So yes.
That is wonderful. Thank you very much for that lovely answer. Thank you. Continuing, we're going to move on to Dr. Madeline Negron. What are some of those inner strengths that have made you who you are today?
So I think you heard me say before through my story, the whole aspect of just perseverance, right? Never giving up. But I would say that I find one of my talents to be my ability to inspire others. And I try to do so through hope, while generating excitement and also like challenging people. We're always challenging people to be at their best and trying to hold those around me and myself accountable for reaching goals. I think I'm a good listener. I think I'm also a very reflective leader. I think one must always reflect and maintain a growth mindset. We are never done learning. We're never done working on ourselves and striving to be the better and the best part of us, right? And I think as such, I always welcome constructive criticism from others and have always maintained a high level of dedication to the profession that I'm in. So I think I would wrap it up as goal-oriented, right? Set that goal, visualize it, and just going for it and persevering.
Thank you very much, Dr. Negron. Next up, we have from the student perspective, Yasmin Galal. Please give me some of your inner strengths and those characteristics that have made you who you are today and, push you for the future.
I would say being able to react quickly and still stay ambitious has been really helpful. For example, at the competition this weekend, the robot got damaged going to Texas. We opened up the box and the whole thing was like pretty much broken after we spent so much time working on it. But we stayed ambitious and we just went to the hotel, put out a mat in the middle of the hall and got rebuilding. And we were able to win 4 out of 6 matches the next day. So I think being able to just react and still have your eye on your goals, even if you're facing any challenges, just staying ambitious, keep persevering. That's what's been most helpful for me.
Wonderful. Thank you, Yasmin. That's a great story and great perseverance. So I think we can all applaud you for that. Finally, we have time for about one more question. And the main question I would like to know is, what advice do you have for young women in middle and high school when it comes to leadership? It could be obviously from your perspective, especially from your own standpoint with your careers, or just kind of what you want to see for the future. So we're going to start again with Sergeant John Moon. Please explain to me those characteristics and those abilities and advice you'd like to see for the young women.
Hey, advice I would give them is don't let other people tell you that you can't do something. Always challenge yourself. And one thing I always told myself was, people aren't comfortable doing new things. And I hate starting something new or being out of my own element. And definitely being in law enforcement, when I started out, it was just very different lifestyle, different atmosphere than what I was used to. And I think being out of your comfort zone, you kind of learn a lot more about yourself and the challenges that you are faced with, and you learn to overcome them. So it's just trying to cope with just life in general. At the time, it may seem like the hardest thing that you're going through, whatever issues or whatever challenges that you may face. However, you get through it. And then when you look back, you're like, it wasn't that bad. And I think it makes you a stronger individual. And especially as women, I just think in this day and age, you have a lot of obstacles that you had to overcome up to this point. And for younger generations, it's gotten a lot better than years ago. So I would explore every opportunity that comes your way, and just challenge yourself when you can. And you learn a lot about yourself when you do challenge yourself. You know, you learn your weaknesses and your strengths, and you may uncover other strengths that you never knew you had.
Yeah.
That's it.
Thank you very much. And especially, I bet Yasmin can also agree to this as well, from the student perspective. That is great advice. And, you know, we try to take that and live off of that every day. So thank you very much for that. Next, we have Dr. Elena Bertozzi, and the same question goes for you. What kind of advice do you have for young women such as Yasmin and I for the future?
Well, following up again on Yun Suk's recommendations, you know, challenging yourself is very important. And just based on what's happened to me in my life, you know, science and technology are really the tools for power in our current society. Everything runs on digital technology. Everything runs on understanding how the world works. And I see over and over in school, young women don't take the hard classes. They avoid computer programming and math and science, and often focus on what they perceive to be as easier classes or classes that they feel more comfortable in. And I would very strongly recommend that you actually seek out those classes, learn programming, learn how to use technology, because that's how you're going to be more powerful. And it's difficult to do that, but it's difficult for the boys in the room too, right? It's hard for everyone. So what I would say is take the hardest classes your school offers. Don't be afraid to do it. The important thing is to figure out how can you succeed in those classes. And you succeed by asking for help. You know, go talk to your teachers all the time when you need help. Sit next to the smartest kid in the room. Who's the smartest kid in the room? Find that person, go sit next to them, become their friend, study with them, and then become the person, you know, become the smartest kid in the room. It's really an incredibly important thing, is to understand that if you want to have a good career, you want to have power, you want to be able to understand how to function in tomorrow's society, those tools are mostly digital, right? Those tools are mostly through technology, and the people who control those tools are the people who are going to control what we see and what we do. So if you know, who are the richest people in the world, right? It's Bill Gates and Elon Musk and Warren Buffett, and people that understand how to use and manipulate technology. And we don't want all those people to be male, right? We really need to have our perspective be in those technologies. And the only way we do that is by becoming as good as they are, you know, at what they're doing. So I would really encourage people, all the women, right, to get smart in science and technology.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bertozzi. That was wonderful. And I very much so appreciate your insight. Following, we have Ayana Torres, and once again, the same question goes for you. What is some of the advice you have for young students, young women in middle and high school for the future?
So something that I would love to tell young women is to stay true to yourselves. Honestly, stay true and stay authentic to what you believe, what you desire, any goals that you have set. Never let any obstacles or anything that's maybe put around you, or maybe what you are surrounded by to alter anything that you would like to do. Being authentic with yourself will always set you apart, and it'll always help you to achieve anything that you would like to achieve. Yeah, being authentic is really a superpower.
Thank you so much, Ms. Torres. I really appreciate your answer. Following, we have Dr. Madeline Negron, and the same question goes for you. What are some of the advice you have for young women?
I think I would say that, as Dr. Bertozzi mentioned, right? When you see power is often held by white males. And I think as women, it is important that we not allow others to kind of box us into these different stereotypes. And often, right, they either want to portray us as soft and ineffective, or on the other extreme, they want to portray us as domineering and manipulative. So I would say that we have to know who we are. We have to know our story. I think also as women of color, it is important that we continue to be who we are, be true to ourselves. Ayana mentioned, right, being authentic. So never forgetting that, and not falling into believing that in order to be successful, that you must comply with the acceptable image of a leader. Just like be you, know who you are, be you, set those goals, picture yourselves in those goals, break down those barriers, and go get it.
Thank you very much, Dr. Negron. Very insightful. Thank you for sharing. And finally, we have student Yasmin Galal. Please explain to us some of the advice that you have for some middle and high school women.
I would say if there's something that you're like, that looks cool, you know, maybe I should try it, and you're just on the fence about it, just do it. And the worst that could happen is you don't like it. But when I was in 8th grade, I was like, robots, like that's kind of weird. And now it's definitely one of my favorite hobbies, just because I was like, you know what, let me try it. It can't hurt. So I would say if you just want to try something, always try it, and it'll definitely be helpful in the future. Even if you don't like it, it'll still be a good learning experience. So just always try something out.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, ladies, for sharing all of your insightful information, advice, your background, and just taking time out of your day to present to everyone. I know we have a lot of people watching today, so thank you so much for being leaders in our community. And it's amazing to see how many wonderful women in power we have, even in a small state such as Connecticut. So thank you very much for your time. And I think we're all very appreciative of all of the answers and insightful wisdom you shared with us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Sydney. Thanks for having us.
What a terrific panel, panel one, terrific representation and excellent responses to the questions that Sydney had to ask. And now we are going to start with our second panel, and we'll give Sydney a chance to catch her breath, and she'll begin interviewing our second distinguished panel of women leaders. So take it away, Sydney.
Thank you so much, Mr. Silva. Good morning, panel two. I'm very excited to continue interviewing the rest of you. So we're just going to jump right into it. Once again, I want to hear about your backgrounds. What kind of experience do you have that have gotten you to the point that you are today, and just kind of explain your position. So I'm going to begin with Sahana K. Smith, who is a principal at Reed High School in Bridgeport. Take it away.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm actually principal of Reed School. We are in Bridgeport. We're pre-K through 8th grade. And I've been principal here for 8 years. Prior to coming to Bridgeport, I was an assistant principal for 3 years at a magnet middle school in Meriden and also at Hampden High School. Prior to that, I was a literacy coach and a teacher. I taught various grade levels within the elementary classrooms. I do have like a lot of experience here. I also worked at the New Haven Detention Center with juveniles ages 9 to 17. I was a teacher there for a period of time, as well as an administrator. And going back to just the days when I was a teacher, I was also a member of the district diversity committee, which was ACES. I was one of the schools that I was a teacher in was Wintergreen Interdistrict Magnet School, which is a part of ACES. And so I joined that diversity committee and then became a co-leader of that committee. And I did that for many, many years, actually up until I left ACES to go on to Hampton High School. I am from New Haven, Connecticut. I grew up in both New Haven and Hampden, and I attended Howard University. I graduated in 1994. So I've been an educator ever since I graduated and had a job lined up as a teacher in Washington, D.C. As just before I graduated. So like I graduated and then walked right into teaching. I taught there in Washington, D.C. for 5 years prior to coming to Connecticut and joining ACES. But I think when I think about my background, I have always loved teaching and working with children. Back in the days when I was a teacher, I wanted to do whatever I could do to help my administrators. So when I became a literacy coach for the school, that took me out of the classroom. I got to know my colleagues in a different way, and I really became like a third arm of my administrative team. I had a principal and an assistant principal, but I was a person that they leaned on frequently, daily. And I would say that when I was a literacy coach, that was like the formal beginning of my having a leadership role with my peers and my colleagues. So during that time as a literacy coach, I did start the UConn Educational Leadership Program, and I finished that I started that in 2010, and then I became an assistant principal the next year in 2011. But my plan and my vision was to become a principal. And that I started here at Reed School in 2014. And then just a few years ago, I graduated from UConn with a certification in executive leadership, which has given me the certification to be a superintendent in the state of Connecticut. So that's pretty much just a glimpse of where I started and kind of where I am today.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for sharing that and for giving us a little bit of background on yourself. Moving on, we're going to move on to Dara Bhuptani, who is the Assistant Vice President for Operational Risk at Morgan Stanley, excuse me. So please share some of your background and some of your insightful wisdom that you have acquired just on yourself.
Yeah, so good morning and thank you for having me. My name is Dara Bhuptani, and a little bit of background before diving into my professional career and the trajectory and what that looks like. I was born in New Haven, Connecticut. I moved to New Jersey at a young age. I went to school at CAS-CIAC University, and I graduated with a bachelor's in computer information systems in 2018, so fairly young, still in my career. During college, I had a few internships in financial services. I knew I'd always want to go into banking, consulting, kind of that world. So my first internship was at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York in information security. And then after college, I moved to Ernst & Young, and I was in technology risk for 3 years there. So that was a great experience. And then I actually just recently moved over to Morgan Stanley and data security and infrastructure risk, which is overall operational risk. And as you mentioned, I'm the assistant vice president in that group in the New York City office. So I think it's been a great experience. I've definitely been in a more male-dominated industry, being in consulting, finance, banking, kind of in that world. And I think just having confidence in my abilities, as well as really kind of owning my career, has really helped me with the trajectory of my career as well. So thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here and for that wonderful answer. Continuing, we're going to move on to Erin Connolly from WFSB. And the same question goes for you. Just give us some background on yourself and, what you've done to get to where you are today.
Well, hi, everyone. Hi, Sydney. Thank you so much for having me. It's a true honor to be with all of these strong women who have overcome so much in their various fields. So it's a pleasure to be here. For me, I was always into sports. And so I wrote a little timeline in kindergarten saying, I'm going to be an NBC sports broadcaster. Well, that didn't happen. And we shifted gears. I went to Tufts University. I played basketball there and was still into sports, but I had thought about going the law school route. And I graduated and I had a connection with someone, and I ended up, my first job was at Inside Edition with Deborah Norville in the city, working behind the scenes and producing and doing red carpets and things like that. And I kind of just got the television bug. And from there, I made a resume tape. My first job was in Mankato, Minnesota, which I'm sure you're not familiar with. And it is 2 hours south of Minneapolis. It's a really, really small town. When you're in journalism and broadcasting, you have to start in really small towns and then kind of work your way up. I'm originally from New York, so there was no chance I was going to be starting in New York. So I went to Mankato, Minnesota. From there, I became the weekend anchor. I then became the weekend anchor at a ABC affiliate in New Bern, North Carolina, which is actually where I met my husband, who was a reporter sitting right across from me. And then from there, I moved to Albany, New York, and I was an anchor there. I turned down a main anchor job there because I really wanted to get closer to home. And I ended up taking a weekend reporting job here at WFSB, thankfully the #1 station in Connecticut. And I've moved up since then. And now I anchor the evening newscast. So I anchor from 4 to 6:30 and 11 o'clock at night. So it's been kind of a weird journey. I always thought about going back to law, but sometimes life just takes you in a different direction. And I guess my little timeline from kindergarten was mostly accurate. So here I am.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Connolly. That was very, very insightful, such a great story. And even though your timeline wasn't exactly what you wanted it to be, I'm still very glad that you found a profession that you're very much so enjoying and that you're wonderful at. So thank you for sharing. Next up, we have Natalia Sierra Milan, who is an attorney at Shipman and Goodwin. Give us a little bit of background about yourself and just let us know about who you are as a person and what you've done to get to where you are today.
Thank you, Sydney. It's such a pleasure to be here this morning. Thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to talk amongst all of you wonderful women. So I was born and raised in Spain. I moved here at the age of 11, not speaking a word of English. And so the world was very terrifying for me. But I always thought I wanted to be a pediatrician. There was no other thing I wanted to do in the world. And so as I finished my high school education, I went to Boston University thinking that that's what I wanted to do. And then I attended a human trafficking conference where this woman by the name of Natalia Walter, who has since passed, she was a very strong advocate for human trafficking victims and a lawyer in Boston. And so I met her and I was just completely captivated by her desire to change the world and to help people. And it was the first time I realized that my love for reading and writing could actually converge with something bigger. And I realized at that very moment that I no longer wanted to be a pediatrician and I wanted to become a lawyer. And so once I did that, I did everything in my power to sort of change gears and turn my attention to the law. And I went straight to Quinnipiac University School of Law. And from there, I was a litigator for some time, for almost 6 years. And then I moved on to the Department of Children and Families. I was the assistant legal director there. And now I have the distinct pleasure of joining the school law practice group at Shipman and Goodwin. So I'm a school lawyer, which is, in my opinion, the best kind of lawyer you can be, because I'm in and out of schools every day. And I get to not only see the wonderful things that we in Connecticut are doing for our students, but I also get to be a part of something that's really significant and impactful on people's lives. So I very much appreciate the opportunity to be here today, because this is part of it's really truly part of why I do what I do, which is to sort of create change and be impactful in education. So one last thing about me, you know, a lot of people ask me sort of how I ended up here. And I think that I have to just thank the wonderful and loving parents that I have. They've been encouraging throughout my life to do just whatever it is that my heart desires. But I also have to be very thankful to the very patient professional mentors that I've had because they've allowed me the room to sort of grow and explore all my strengths and all my weaknesses without judgment. And so that's why I think I was able to switch gears from being a pediatrician to a lawyer, because I encountered very wonderful people along the way who supported my vision. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Milan. That was so impactful, and I think the message that you sent out about family is very, very important, and I'm really glad you brought that up, so thank you. Following, we have from the student perspective, student Araya Miller from Windsor High School. So Araya, please explain some of the background that you have, similar to the first panel with Yasmin. Just explain that background that you have to where you've gotten today and kind of what you want to do with your future.
And hello, thank you for having me today. It's been very lovely listening to everyone's stories and just hearing a little bit more about everyone from the various career paths. I'm Araya Miller. I'm a senior at Windsor High School. I'm a member of the CAS-CIAC committee, so that's the State Student Advisory Committee on Education, and we are working on a presentation that's addressing mental health in schools, specifically after COVID-19. So it has been very interesting to get a lot of research done about that and learning how mental health has really been negatively impacted by COVID-19 and trying to determine solutions, if that be social emotional learning, different events and activities and programs that can be established within schools, if that's improving counseling departments and things like that. So that's something that we've been working on the state level. And then within my local community, I'm a vice president for our class of 2022, as well as president of our student council. So in that, I do a lot of planning events that are bonding my school and my peers, which has been especially important this year, now that everyone's coming back in person and we haven't gotten to know our underclassmen. So we've been establishing different events from our Spirit Week, our pep rally, homecoming, and various like kickball tournaments and things like that. So we're really trying to boost school morale and make sure that, yes, school is an educational place and we want to learn academically, but we first have to start by ensuring that everyone feels comfortable and safe within the school community. So that's something we're working at in my school as well. I'm a representative, a student representative on our school governance council. So in that, I talk more with administrators, our principal, some people on our town council and board of ed, and just discuss various issues within our school. And we're coming up with an action plan regarding improving different things like reassessing higher level courses and ensuring that students feel motivated enough to go reach for higher level courses, especially students of color and women especially who may not always be in those AP level classes. We're also just addressing different things as well as improving and enhancing our student council and making it more an advocacy place versus just a social event planning club and different things along those elements. And I'm also a student advisory leader in our school. So that means that allows me to work more personally with underclassmen and talking to them on a personal level versus like about what classes they're choosing next year, giving them advice on how to manage their time, taking extracurriculars, and giving them advice from a senior who has gone through the school system and ensuring that everyone's improving and making sure that everyone feels encouraged, especially our underclassmen. And then I'm also the captain of our tennis team. So as far as background and what's led me to this point, I can say it's in large part due to my parents. My parents are both immigrants from Jamaica, so they instilled in me this value for using the opportunities that America offers you and really getting involved in extracurriculars and working hard to get my education and my academic pursuits. So that was instilled in me in a very, very early age. And from a young age, from elementary school, I've been doing leadership work and events. Like I remember in like 5th grade, I did like a kindness project where I had these group of students come together and we gave out kindness notes and put in everyone's lockers and things like that. So I think it really just stems from me seeing an issue within my community and being passionate enough to want to take action and make a difference. So thank you.
Thank you, Araya. That was wonderful. And thank you for giving us that insight on all of the different extracurricular activities you have, especially as a senior in high school. It can be a lot to juggle. So that's wonderful that you're able to do all of those things. So thank you for sharing. I kind of want to shift gears and move on to another question about your style of leadership and what are some of the philosophies and main principles that guide that style of leadership that you have. So we're going to start with Sahana K. Smith, and just, give me a brief overview of your style of leadership and what you personally use to help guide it.
I just lost the last piece of what you said. My style of leadership and I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries. I'm so sorry. What you use to guide it.
Okay, thank you. So I believe that building relationships are really, really important. It's like the core of what I do is working to build relationships with my staff, with my students, with their families, with the community. That is very, very key. And with that, communication is also just as important. I mean, just thinking through the last several years of dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic, communication is something that has really kept us together, my school staff, our families that attend the school, just during the time that we were not even able to be in school because school was closed. Communication was so, so important. So that is really the number one. But I also I have numerous teams within my school, and I work with them. We work collaboratively to try to make decisions. So, and I'll use COVID as another example. We closed and then we opened for in-person learning in the fall of 2020. And so I had to come up with a plan that had to be shared with my district for what we would do to keep our students and our staff safe. And I didn't just create that plan on my own. I worked with a team. I got teachers who volunteered to come and join the team with me. We had numerous meetings to identify what was really important to us and to basically draft our plan that could be shared with our district as well as with our families. So working and knowing, that when I have ideas, I have many teachers who have ideas and they come to me with their ideas. So I also think that valuing teacher voice is really important in what I do. I love to hear others' ideas. I feel that helps to create buy-in across the school, and it helps my teachers feel like leaders themselves. So just working with the teams and being collaborative is crucially important. And then working to build coherence across the school community. So we have worked really, really hard this school year on strengthening our attendance, our student attendance. And we have now seen gains in various grade levels. And that is because we together, it's been a full team effort from my secretaries to the teachers, the homeroom teachers, the administrators. We work to examine our attendance on a daily basis. We communicate with our families, but we are seeing results where multiple grade levels, middle school grade levels, grades 6, 7, and 8, which are grade levels that traditionally attendance starts to fall off. We're seeing an increase in attendance in those grade levels. So that's just another example. And that really is because we all took on a team approach. We tackled this problem together as a team, and we worked on enhancing our systems and enhancing our coherence in this area. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Smith. I'm very excited to hear that you take that team approach, and that's amazing that you're able to increase attendance. So I applaud you for that, and I applaud your team that you've assembled for that. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Next up, we're going to move on to Dar Bhuktani. And the same question goes for you. What is your style of leadership? And, how do you take that and apply it to your life? What are those guiding philosophies?
Yeah, so I think my style of leadership is more in the coaching and teamwork aspect. So a lot of my roles, coaching analysts, associates, individuals under me about the concepts of wealth management, IT audit, anything that really goes into our work. And these individuals are usually right out of college, or they're really only like 1 or 2 years into their job. So a lot of it's just really helping them understand kind of the framework and grow from there. And then a lot of it's mentorship as well. So the guiding principle is that you want someone else to take your job that's under you. So I think getting people that are really settled and comfortable and they can support you, I think is definitely one of the style of leaderships. A lot of it's coaching. I think the second is teamwork. Everything that we do is always in a team. You're never really doing something by yourself. So I think just working collaboratively and really enhancing and fostering a collaborative environment, and as well as coaching the individuals under you, I think is definitely the two styles of leadership that I have.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Ms. Bhuktani, for sharing. Following, we're going to move on to Erin Connolly. So what are your styles of leadership, and what are those guiding philosophies for them?
So my father was in education for 37 years, most of those years as a high school principal on Long Island. So I was lucky enough to watch someone lead every single day. And it started with him just waiting outside of the school every morning and greeting every single child as they got off of the bus. And when he retired, they actually named the front porch area the Neil J. Connolly porch, because it was where he waited every day. He saw the kid getting off the bus who maybe had a bad morning, and it was a way to connect in a different way. So I was able to see that. And then from playing team sports and playing basketball in college, I really was able to understand that not everyone is the same. And what gets the most out of people is really an individual trait. And so you have to look at your team members. It's not a one size fits all in terms of leadership. And it doesn't have to be where you're the loudest person in the room. It can be as simple as someone's going through a tough time. Maybe their grandmother is sick and you say, how's your grandmother doing? It's little things like that, asking people about their personal lives, seeing what drives someone, because some people need support. Some people need to be fired up. And it's looking at all of those personality traits and what makes people tick. That's truly the ultimate form of leadership. You have to be positive, you have to be supportive, you have to be there for people, and you have to know what is going to bring out the best in everyone. Because what makes a great team is that everyone's different and everyone brings different things to the table, and there's no one right answer. And I think one of the other important components of leadership is knowing what you don't know. And there's a lot that I don't know, and leaning on others in those areas and not being afraid to ask questions and lean on others who that may be their area of expertise. It doesn't make you a weak leader because you don't know anything. It makes you confident. And lastly, since we're on, with women in leadership, supporting other women. It's far too often where I've gone to these different jobs across the country, and unfortunately, the women have immediately perceived me as a threat without getting to know me and trying to make friendships. And it's something that I've really kept at top of mind, because when a new woman comes into my workplace now, I'm the first person to meet them. I'm the first person to show them where the copier is. If we as women all came together, do you know how strong we would be? it would be amazing. And that's what we need to do. We need to continue to support each other and not look at each other as threats, but as teammates and co-leaders.
Wow, thank you very much for sharing your advice and your input on not only just the leadership style, but uplifting women. Very inspirational. And I think we can all agree that that was beautifully said. So thank you for sharing that with all of us.
Thank you.
Following, thank you. Following, we're going to move on to Natalia Sierra Milan. And once again, same question goes for you. I know I keep saying that a lot, but I just want to hear a little bit about your personal leadership style and what those driving philosophies are for your leadership every day.
Well, I so appreciate the question because even though my answer is probably not going to be as eloquent as everyone else's, it's certainly very simple in my mind. I lead with empathy. Always. Empathy is the sort of leading force in my leadership style. I listen and I'm patient. I collaborate. I don't dictate in any way. And I connect with people through respect and humor and encouragement. And I'm able to sort of create opportunities to work together with a common purpose and with affection, just recognizing that we're all sort of part of a family of individuals that are trying to get things done together. You know, I've loved school ever since I was a little girl. In fact, if somebody would pay me to go to school every day, I would for the rest of my life. So I find that the best way to learn is in environments without fear. And so I approach leadership as a teaching opportunity every time. Because that's how my most impactful mentors have sort of impacted my life, by giving me a rope to sort of do what I wanted to do, but still be tethered to them in some way, and sort of learn in an environment that doesn't judge negatively, but rather sort of encourages, you know, an opportunity to do better the next day. So that's my leadership style.
Thank you very much, Ms. Milan, for sharing. I think we can all appreciate the simplistic yet very intricate answer at the same time. So thank you for sharing. Finally, for this question, we have Araya Miller. Please just explain your leadership style and those guiding philosophies that you have for your leadership.
So yeah, I would say I have a similar leadership style as far as like, I lead by listening. So I like to start all like my meetings and student council with posing an objective, like this is what we have to do today, if that is like organizing a spirit week, and then allowing everyone in the group to brainstorm ideas, come up with things, and then we come together, we go through what the ideas we have, vote on which one we think is the best. And if it comes to a tie or we can't make a final decision on something, then I might come in to make that executive decision. But I think by listening to what everyone has to say and then addressing it that way, you're able to come up with more creative ideas that you wouldn't have been able to have done by yourself. And you're just able to establish trust with everyone, especially in like groups that you believe that their voice is just as important as yours and that you trust that their ideas are going to make a difference. And that just allows you to delegate tasks a lot better too, and knowing what everyone's strengths are. For example, if I have an event to plan for student council, I'm not a very artsy person, so I'll have someone that I know that's in art and good with those kind of things to organize a flyer, and then I'll spread that out. And I think it's important just to do leadership by using everyone else's voice instead of just being a dictator or taking everything and doing it by yourself. And that's important, just creating creative ideas and driving home what you really want to get done.
Thank you very much, Araya, for sharing that and being able to see that student perspective. Thank you. We have time for about one or two more questions. So I'm going to ask the question I would like to end with, just in case we cannot fit in another question. But I really want to know what advice you would give to young women in middle and high school, just based off of your own experiences. What do you have to say? Just about women like us and how to get where we want to be and be successful. So we're going to begin with Sahana K. Smith again. And yeah, just please give us your insight.
Okay, thank you. This is a real important question to me because I think I have always looked on to women that came before me. I didn't share this in providing you with my background, but my mother and her mother, my maternal grandmother, were both educators. And so I feel that, you know, I was playing with school I was playing teacher ever since I was a young girl. But I bring that up because I'm always looking at the women, especially that have come before me and my elders. But I want to say to all the young people that it really is okay if you are shy. So like for everyone in high school, if you're shy right now, if you are uncertain of your future, that is okay. I was such a shy student in high school. People mispronounced my name all the time and I never corrected them. I just like let it be. I never wanted people looking at me. I just was like a very, very shy person. And now, you know, I'm not. I'm almost 50 and I'm not shy. I have, you know, a lot of confidence. And so that has developed over the years. And so that's why I just feel that it's really important for young people to know that if you're shy, it's okay. It's who you are right now, but you will continue to develop. But I also think that it's really important to have integrity and to be honest with yourself. Ask yourself, and this is for anyone at any age, like what is important to you? And I'll give just a really quick story from high school. You know, I did share that I was this really shy kid in high school. I think I was a junior or perhaps a senior. And I had a class and there was a disabled student in the class with us who was in a wheelchair and she could not speak. So she had a device that she would type or enter, you know, her thoughts and questions in, and then this little machine would print. And I graduated high school in 1990. So this is like in the late 80s. And so she would have this little strip of paper would come out with, you know, her thoughts, her contribution to a discussion or her questions. And at that time in the late 80s, our teacher didn't know how to deal with that, didn't know how to handle that. And so his best way of handling that was just to like act like she wasn't in the classroom, just kind of like look around and beyond her. And, you know, students then would look around and beyond her. I ended up like sitting next to her in class. And when I realized, you know, that machine printed out questions, if she had a question or if she had a comment, she would print it. And then I would raise my hand. The teacher would think he was calling on me. And I would say, so-and-so has a question that she'd like to ask. And I would read her question aloud. And I share that because it's interesting to me, being at this stage in my life and at this stage in my career. It's interesting whenever I'm able to look back in my younger years and see examples of things that are important to me today and say like, wow, that's always been important to me. That's something that's been important to me, you know, ever since I was a kid. So I think that's another big piece of advice, is to think about what is really important to you and learn how to be honest with yourself. And the last thing I'll say is that it's really important to lean on people who are willing to be your mentors. Reach out and stay in touch with these people. So if you have an older person in your life, an adult in your life who is interested in what you're doing, do your best to stay connected with that person. Go to someone and ask them to be your mentor. I can tell you that I've been asked to mentor, and that's like one of the greatest compliments, to be asked by someone to be a mentor. So don't feel that you are, you know, if you're a young person, if you are a young adult in high school, and, you know, don't be afraid to go and ask someone to be a mentor to you. Don't be afraid to go and ask someone for some advice, but definitely when people show an interest in you, stay in touch with them, because we all need mentors in our life. So those are my bits of advice.
Thank you very much, Ms. Smith, for sharing that and for giving lots of not just advice, but a lot of wisdom and you can tell that you have a lot of experience that's led up to giving advice such as that. So thank you very much for sharing and for giving all of your insights on life and just advice in general. So thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on, we're going to move on to Dari Bhuptani, and the same question goes for you. What kind of advice do you have for young women, for not only just now, but for the future?
Yep. So I think my answer is very similar. So I was in high school. I graduated high school in 2014, so not too long ago. And I was super shy in high school. If you had asked me if I was doing this panel X amount of years later, I'd be like, no way, there's absolutely no way. I'd be so terrified. I wouldn't even raise my hand in the classroom, be so scared. I'd always lose participation points because I never participated. So it paints the picture of I was super, super shy. And I think I did a lot of things that helped me step outside my comfort zone. So I think a few pieces of advice is it's okay to be shy. I wish I didn't go right after because it looks like I'm copying your answer, but it's okay to be shy. And I think a lot of how I've gained confidence is just throwing myself out into being really, really uncomfortable. So my confidence didn't really build into my first year of college at Quinnipiac. So I remember I was asked to do this leadership position where I needed to do this speech for like 5 to 7 minutes. And I was so terrified and I didn't do a great job, but I was like, you know what? I did it. I did an okay job at it, but I was able to say, okay, that was a stepping stone. I'll grow from that. So I think my first two pieces of advice are being confident and stepping outside your comfort zone. I think when you step outside your comfort zone, you gain more confidence by doing things you're scared of. And I think the next two are just adapting. So there'll always be situations where you're not super involved or you don't feel like you have all the information. But I think being adaptable and learning from situations that you're scared of is definitely going to be an area where you can grow from. And then I think the last is it kind of goes in tandem with that. It's having a learning mindset. So you're not always going to be the person that knows everything. And I think just learning as you're growing in your career, whether it be middle school, high school, college, thereafter in your professional career, that I think goes kind of full circle, gaining confidence. You'll learn a lot more. So you'll step outside of your comfort zone. And I think you'll be a little bit more adaptable to any situation that comes your way because you'll have that mindset of always wanting to learn. So I think those 4 things for sure.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ms. Bhuptani, for sharing and for giving your insights on those experiences. And it's interesting to see how, you've transformed after throwing yourself into those uncomfortable positions. So me personally, I really appreciate that piece of advice. So thank you for sharing. Next, we have Erin Connolly, and just give us some advice that you have for young women.
I think first off, it's a hard time in that age is hard. And I think there are a lot of pressures that can be put on you. And there are a lot of people in your life that may not be the right people you want to be around. And I think that you have to lead with kindness. You have to think about that. I remember being bullied in middle school and high school and just walking in the door from the bus and my mom saying, Erin, what happened? She knew immediately by my face. And it's easy to get together and be catty and gang up on someone. And you have to really think about that person going home and being sad. It never feels good to make someone feel sad. You want to lift other women up. And if you're surrounded by a group of girls who that's what they're doing, then you need to separate from that group. You need to be the person who's, if there's a single person at a lunch table and they're not eating with anyone, go over to them. It's going to make you feel good and it's going to make them feel good. It never makes you feel good to be mean to someone else. And really, it's just a sign of, a lack of confidence or something that they're missing in their own life to feel the need to lash out and not include you. So that would be a really important thing. It's tough at this age to stand out from the group and to be kind, but that is absolutely crucial. The other thing is believe in yourself. There's a saying, you know, if you don't believe in yourself, why should anyone else? Now, I'm not saying that that's true because, you know, my parents believed in me. I had mentors that believed in me, but you have to believe in yourself. You have to know what your skill sets are and that you are important and you are worthy and you are good enough. And I think that is just absolutely crucial in all aspects of your life, whether it's relationships with friends, relationships with a significant other, trying to apply to different colleges and eventually landing your first career. You are enough, you are good enough, and you will be good enough. And lastly, I would say advocating for yourself. I feel like far too often women are really afraid of putting themselves out there and advocating for themselves. My husband's boss told him recently that when she promotes a woman, they accept the salary. When she promotes a man, they counteroffer. And it's a small little thing, but it's so true. It just shows the difference in the sexes that we're like, oh, grateful for this opportunity. And men are saying, I want more, I deserve more. We need to do that. When I first got to Channel 3, I wasn't given any opportunities to fill an anchor. And I wrote an email to the general manager at the time. And I said, give me a shot. Let me anchor one day. If it goes horrible, you never have to let me anchor again. Just let me anchor. Put me out there. I want to anchor. And guess what? It's led to me now being the main anchor. If I hadn't done that, I don't know where I'd be right now. If I hadn't, you know, advocated for myself and believed in myself and led with kindness, I wouldn't be in the position that I am today. So I hope those 3 little things help you in your journey.
Thank you very much for sharing, Ms. Connolly, and providing those insights for the advice, and, you know, just going after what you want and what you deserve. So thank you. Next up, we have Natalia Sierra Milan. Please share with us a piece of advice, or lots of pieces of advice that you would like young women to take with them.
Well, I will just share with you sort of what's made me who I am. And that is just 3 simple things: to find your purpose, to commit to that purpose, and to be patient and kind with yourself as you grow professionally and personally. The other thing I just want to note, and a lot of my colleagues here have mentioned it, is that sort of nothing lasts forever. No embarrassment, no pain, no insecurity. So try new things. It's completely okay to fail. Just get up and try it again and let yourself explore who you are and what you love. You know, one of the things that I've tried to focus on is developing a mindful practice of committing to personal improvement. Improve who you are and what you stand for. And it's totally okay to change your mind. You're going to learn very different things throughout your life. And it's okay to not always feel the same way you did yesterday. You know, the way you feel now is going to certainly be different than how you feel in your 20s and how you feel in your 30s. So have an open mind and heart to different opportunities, because I don't think you're going to regret it. I certainly never regretted it, because I think through those opportunities, you sharpened your strengths and you accept your weaknesses and use them as a learning opportunity.
Thank you very much for sharing, Ms. Milan, and giving your insights. And finally, we have from the student perspective, Araya Miller. Please just give a couple of pieces of advice or piece of advice that you would like young women to take with them.
I would just say that the main thing is, if it's not you, then who will it be? So if you see an issue within your school, within your community, and you don't see any change going about it, and you see that it's affecting multiple people and you really want to speak up about it, you need to. And it's important that you remember that you do have a voice, and no matter like who tries to put you down. I think a lot of times it comes with, oh, you're too young, or the idea that we've been talking about, just being a woman in general, it may feel like you're out of place. And I think women often get that idea that they have to be seen rather than heard, and that they shouldn't speak until spoken to. And I think we need to defy those stereotypes, because we have a voice just like anyone else. And if we see something that we want to change, we should go about doing it. And it's just about being proactive and looking for opportunities to speak up and advocate for whatever you think is important to you, and just allow your passions to drive you. So if that be cooking, social injustices, art, music, anything that you're passionate about and you want to see some change, if you want to see more funding for your art program, or you just want to see some better racial equality issues in the education system, you should be looking out for opportunities like that and trying to grab them and making sure that you're proactive and not just reacting to certain things. So those would be my main pieces of advice.
Wonderful. Thank you all for sharing not just your advice, but sharing your lives, dedicating your time to the professions that you have, and of course, being here to explain where you have gotten in life and how you've gotten in life. It's been such a pleasure to work with all of you and to ask you these questions. So I applaud you all, and just keep continuing what you're doing. It's wonderful and it's inspiring to people such as myself. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time and this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Sydney. I want to thank our excellent moderator for her questions and her way of moving this presentation through, and she did a terrific job. And I want to thank all of our panelists for being with us here this morning and sharing your experiences and wisdom with our audience. Such great pieces of advice, and really very grateful for your participation and your leadership in your individual fields and for sharing those experiences today. I want to thank again CAS-CIAC's corporate partners, the Connecticut Army National Guard, Connecticut Alliance to End Sexual Violence, Connecticut Lighting Centers, Horace Mann, Jostens, MCM Fundraising, and Spring Path for their support. And I want to thank everyone in the audience for attending. We know the example of the amazing leaders you have heard from this morning will inspire you towards achieving your own leadership goals. Just a reminder, we'll have a recording of today's conference available. You'll receive notification when that's ready. For other CAS-CIAC events and activities and programs, please check out our webpage, CAS-CIAC.org, and you'll find all kinds of opportunities for students and for school leaders. On behalf of all of us at CAS-CIAC, I wish you very well, a great day, great rest of the week, and thank you again so much for being here. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye. Thank you.